Hello, people of the world, and welcome back to the Marry in Motion podcast where we journey together. In today's episode, I want to take you back to a time when my life took an unexpected turn. Picture this, it's February 14th, 2011. I'm 8 years old and my family is landing in Nouméa in New Caledonia. And we are about to begin a 2-year adventure that would shape so much of who I am today. This story isn't just about moving, it's about learning to embrace a completely different life. My time in New Caledonia taught me something essential. Living elsewhere means embracing change, not fighting it. So let me set the stage. We just left behind everything we knew. I left my friends, my school, my home. And it wasn't a choice. We had nothing to say in it. And honestly, we didn't even have time to process it. When I say we, I speak about me and my siblings. My parents, that now I consider very brave, only told us in early December that we were going to leave in early February. They had been on a wish list for this teaching opportunity, and when the email finally came, it was a done deal. My dad, who had requested New Caledonia somewhat on a whim, didn't even know much about the place when he applied. They told us the same day they got the confirmation, and just like that, our life shifted. It was our first time on a plane, and what a journey! It was almost 24 hours of flying. I remember watching movies the whole time, wide-eyed, completely unaware of what was awaiting. When we arrived, it was a shock. First, I remember going down the plane and a heat wave hitting us, the humidity, the smell, everything was so different. Then we had issues with our shipping container, with all our furniture and belongings. It was delayed for over a month. For weeks we camped in our house, sleeping on woven mats in the living room. Our furniture was borrowed from the principal from the school where my dad was working. And for example, we had just the laptop on a cardboard box and it was our only entertainment. And yet we were fine. Life felt normal on its own way, and that simplicity taught us resilience. There were so many little things that defined our life there. For example, we each had a pareo. It's a simple piece of fabric that became everything for us. It could become a dress, a blanket, a towel, a tent, a carpet, even a comfort for sleeping with. And we got used to walking barefoot everywhere, something that my little brother still insisted on doing when we returned to France. Our home was in a rural area, far from the capital. It was mostly an expat neighborhood, which was very different from the local communities, where the Kanak, the name of the locals, lived in close tribes. We didn't truly integrate into the local culture, but we learned to appreciate its beauty. The weekends we were going on the beach, we were exploring the lush landscape, and school vacation took us to places like the Isle of Pine and Nouméa, which are stunning islands with crazy reefs, with some banyan trees. Like, everything was very different from what we knew. All of the flowers, the trees, the animals. It was amazing. At school though, the things weren't always easy. I experienced racism for the first time. Some kids were kind to me in private, but acted differently when others were around. Actually, I was one of the only white person from the school. Besides the teachers, all of the other students were locals, so they were black, and I was the only one. It was also the first time I was confronted to this, because back in France, I was like in the norm, but not there. It was difficult for me to integrate. Some kids were kind to me in private, but acted differently when others were around. I was also not really having friends, because a little group in the school forbid people to be friends with me. And I couldn't really understand why. Like for me, but I feel like I forgot a lot about this period because, I don't know, maybe to protect myself, I don't know. But I just remember being alone, sitting during the breaks, reading, and people didn't really bother me. But sometimes they were a bit sneaky and they were like writing on my clothes or stealing my stuff, which really was feeling like I didn't understand. Because some of them were very nice to me when we were only in a small groups or only 2 people, but when everyone was around they would ignore me or even be mean too. It is something that my parents really didn't expect when they came here, because as I said, they also didn't really like read a lot about the country or anything, and also it's something they have never lived, so they didn't even take it into account at all. And then when we arrived and we started living some racism, like they didn't really know how to react. Also, now that I think about it, I'm a bit shocked that kids that were not even 8 years old were already racist, which I think is quite sad. But I know there is a deeply rooted racism in New Caledonia, mostly because of, like, there are 3 big communities: the Kanak, which are the natives that were there like since forever; the Caldoche, which colonized them, like I don't know when, but generations and generations ago. And then the third category are the tourists or the expats, which just arrived, so like me and my family. And really those 3 categories don't really, like they don't really get along with each other. And there are really a lot of tensions, especially between the Kanak and the Caldoche. So I was white, so I was associated maybe with the Caldoche. I don't know. Anyway, I think there is really a lot of racism there, which I don't think you should be scared of when you go there. For example, if you go there for traveling or just for a few years, because I mean, I lived it as a child, but it was also not that crazy. I don't think my parents really lived it. I think I was the only one. Yeah, anyway, the school itself was also very different. For example, we had like prison-like trays at the cafeteria that were very sticky from the soap they were using. We had to say some prayers before the meals. And the teachers even disciplined the students physically. Not me though, because I was white, so I was spared, which didn't make it better for my relationship with the other students because I was treated differently. Still, there were some small joys with this school. The playground bordered the ocean, and sometimes we had some sports classes where we would just have to swim in the ocean, and it was still amazing. Also, the children were curious about my hair texture because I have not straight hair but almost compared to theirs, so they would often braid my hair. Where I was living was a bit more insecure than in the south, where there is the capital and everything. There were some insecurities in the area, especially with the adults drinking a lot. My parents were a bit scared, and they were working hard to make us feel safe. Looking back now, I think their precaution seems a bit excessive, but as a young parent with 4 small kids, I understand their concern. Even though I've spoken with some people that were in New Caledonia recently for traveling, 2 girls that were traveling alone, and they were really feeling not unsafe. I think really my parents maybe overreacted, but I can understand. When I was there, I was feeling their concern. So now in my head I was imagining this island quite dangerous and everything. But I'm happy I chatted with those girls that were there, so I could change my mind a bit about this. Despite the challenges, though, there were moments of pure magic. My grandparents came to visit, and it was the first time they were going so far, and it was such a trip for them. I remember fishing with my grandpa on the reefs, spotting rays and other sea creatures. We visited some iconic beach with some crazy views, amazing landscapes. My siblings and I created memories with the friends, our neighbors, spending hours playing, exploring, and living outside barefoot in the heat. Really, we were also so often playing in the rain, under the rain, because during the rain season, it was raining the whole time, but it was so hot. We were always outside. It's truly amazing memories. Maybe it's not truly memories and only pictures and stories people told me, but it's still very dear for me. What amazes me most now is how bold my parents were to take us there. When I recently asked my dad if it wasn't terrifying to move 4 young children, we were 8, 6, and 3, to the other side of the world, he surprised me with his answer. He said, "Raising kids is the same challenge wherever you go. You were adaptable because that's how we raised you, to take what you are given." He also added that moving from work made things easier. He also added that moving for work made things easier because we had a financial security that helped them focus on adapting to the life there. They didn't have to focus on this aspect. And over there, it wasn't better or worse, it was just different. When we returned to France on December 2012, I really felt like a different person. I had experienced another way of living, and it opened my eyes to the diversity of the world. Even small things like walking barefoot stayed with us. And those 2 years left a deep impression on my parents too. My dad often says that living overseas is like a virus. Once you've caught it, you can't stop wanting more. In the end, my time in New Caledonia wasn't just about adapting to a new place. It was about embracing change, finding joy in simplicity, and allowing the unknown to shape me. And that, I think, is the true essence of travel. Not just to see new places, but to let those places transform you. I really feel like this experience made me want more and showed me that it was possible to go abroad and that it was actually enjoyable, and I really wanted to have more. I think that for my siblings, it was a bit different because they were younger. I was there when I was 8 and I left when I was 10. For the middle one, she was 6 when we arrived, and the others was 3. So they really didn't remember all that happened. And even though it left an impression on them, it's very different from mine. I can see it now that I really have that will to travel more, and they don't really have it. I don't know if it comes from there, but I really feel like for me, it really changed everything. Thank you for joining me on this trip down memory lane. Next time we will dive into another chapter of my journey. Until then, keep exploring and see you in the next episode.